Good morning for the next few seconds. This is the portion of the show where we let the notifications go out and I sit here and wait for the clock in the other room to stop doing its 12 o'clock bong 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 noise. And when that's finished, I'll go ahead and push the button and get rid of this sappy screen here at the beginning of the video. And we move on from there. Sounds to me like it's done finally. So we'll say, hey y'all, how y'all doing today? Glad to be here. Glad to see y'all out here. We're going to be talking about the two-sided machining I did earlier in the video released earlier today. But before we do that, let's go ahead and jump over here and see who all's with us. We have Ice Cream 62 from Italy. How you doing this evening for you, my friend? Let's see. Jack Painter is here. Thomas Grimm. Steve Nealon from Harneal Media checking in with us today. Sponsor of Mark Lindsay CNC.com. Thank you very much, Steve. Mr. Mario Medina, how you doing today? Jeff Rozak checking in from Florida. Mr. Ayal Peleg from Israel. And Roger Fournier from New Hampshire, how you doing today? Dale in Utah, Dale Francis. Mr. Matt Awesome Wood Things Haas, how you doing today, Master Matt? Matt's not only awesome wood things, he's awesome fun things. He's all things YouTube. He's piano awesome. I keep telling him he just needs to get the YouTube channel All Things Awesome and go from there. And, because it's a lot less typing, I think, fewer channels to keep track of. I have a feeling, though, he's going to buy up all the domain names with the word awesome in it and have them redirect just to him. So, good marketing anyway. David Kraus from Michigan. How you doing today, David? Let's see who else we got going here. Boy, we getting a full house. Steve Late from London. Great minds think alike, Mr. Steve. Francisco Paz from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Stephen Main checking in from Australia. Troy Pritchard. How you doing, Troy? Kevin Els from South Africa. I know that just amazes me every time I think about someone in South Africa is watching this guy. It's weird to me. It really is. Let's see. Mr. Bob Heltebridal, poster of all things rude, crude, and socially unacceptable on his YouTube channel. Also known as Funny Stuff. Baron Black. Jim Hester from Kentucky. Gorgeous country back there. We almost stayed in Kentucky, but we just didn't. Loved it back there. Kevin Christopher from Dirty Jersey. All right. Gunnar Norum from Norway. And a happy Constitution Day to you, Mr. Norum. Mike Gallo from Arlington. Is that Tennessee? Wow. The Dirty Knobs from Chi-Town. Mark John. Charles Lawrence. Doug Rees from just south of me in California. Let's see. Mark John. I think I mentioned Mark John from Washington, just north of me. What the heck? Perfect. David Roby from Central Florida. All right, we'll start with a real easy question here. Mark John says, where are you from, Mark? I'm from about 7 miles down the road. I'm in Southern Oregon, just outside of a town called Medford. We're about 40 miles north of about 30 miles north of the California border. And I tell folks that I'm so local, I'm related to myself. I'm fourth generation here, and it's a small town, so I very quite possibly could be related to myself. So, okay. So, before we get into the questions, wanted to get back into the project a little bit because I've had a couple of questions both in comments on the video and on in a couple of emails asking me about placing these locating dowel holes. So let me go ahead and bring up the project, then we'll switch over to Aspire and we'll go ahead and full screen the 2D view here. When I drew these circles right here, these little 1/4 inch circles, these are, this being the top of the material, these are actually the holes that I'm going to be drilling into the spoil board in the video. Now, if you recall from part 2 of this mini-series, when I drew these holes on the surface, I immediately selected them both, then right-click, and I copied them to the other side of the project. What that did is that basically projected all the way through to the bottom, and I'll switch over to the bottom of the material here. So now I'm looking at the bottom, and we can tell by the orange stripes in the scales here. That immediately projected them to the other side of the material so that they are in perfect alignment. Now, these are the holes that I drilled in my material in the video. That was the first step that I did. These two right here. Then I V-carved the lilies. Then I took the material off and I kept making a big deal about how the X and Y don't change. And I know I harped on that. I really pressed on it hard, hot, and heavy. And I actually edited out a few times when I said it again. But that is just so important, and I've had too many questions about it, about, well, when do I reset my X and Y 0? Well, you don't, and that was the whole point. Once you set it, it's done. So these are the ones that I drilled in the material for my locating dowels. Then when I flip it over to cut the top last, these were the holes that I drilled in the spoil board, that piece of plywood. Then I mounted the material, and away we went. I did the V-carve, then I did my profile cutout. So when I selected these, then copied to the other side, there was no further alignment or measuring or anything else I had to do. It copied them straight over to the other side, just projected it straight over to the back. There was no other alignment or measuring or checking or anything else to be done. The software knows to do that automatically. So, I hope that clears up any confusion that I may have created by not speaking clearly enough. Sometimes I know what I want to say, but I have trouble articulating it. And that's not a good thing when you make YouTube videos. So, let's see. Jim Hester, great video. Seeing you physically do the dowels on your CNC took the mystery out of two-sided machining. Thanks. Okay, terrific. Now, if I could just get my CNC to play music like yours does in the videos. Well, thank you, Jim. First of all, I use music sparingly because I know a lot of people don't like it. And, but to me, even a short montage like the ones that I had in today's video are pretty boring with silence. I don't like sped up tool noises. It just irritates me, and I go through these videos 4, 5, 6 times before I upload them. and it just gets irritating to hear the sped up tool noises and stuff like that. So I just throw a little bit of music over it and be done with it, so it's not silence. In one video, I experimented with using sound effects, like I had crickets in the background, or I had I fired up my table saw, and I think I had a Briggs and Stratton engine running, and then another time I turned on the drill press and it was a Harley Davidson running or something like that. But that's just not my style. So, okay, let's get into some questions here now. Thomas Grimm asked way up here, way back when I first started, are you going to talk about painting and finishing the project? Eventually, yes. But as I've alluded to, I live in Southern Oregon, and you don't get a suntan here, you rust. It's basically been drizzling and raining off and on for about the last 2 to 3 weeks. And this has been going on since November. We'll have a few nice days, then we'll have a lot of rain, and the humidity is staying way up there. So I just haven't been able to get the weather to finish spraying them. They're sitting right here. They're done, but they're not painted. And it's not looking like I'm going to be able to paint this week either. I just simply don't have room in the shop to set up and paint there. It's too cold to let the paint cure out in the shop, and I don't want the stink in the house, so I'm kind of at the mercy of the weather. I cannot wait to get my new shop built because it will have heat and AC, and this will no longer be a factor. But for right now, I'm not going to be able to get this finished. So, next week video is going to be something completely and totally different. So, it's not that we've been getting a lot of rain, it's just it's been taking forever for us to get it. So, what can I say? Let's see, what else do we have going here? Matt Haas talking about my thumbnails and everything. The drop shadows on my text is huge, huge. It's retro, and I'm a retro kind of guy, so yeah, I'm all about that drop shadow. So, let's see. Okay, are there any questions? I'm not seeing any questions. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong spot about my thumbnails and everything. I'm not seeing any questions at all. I see Doug Reese says he has family in Gold Beach. I tell you what, if you've never been out west, the Oregon coast is absolutely spectacular scenery. It's gorgeous stuff. And Gold Beach is just one part of it. I mean, it's a nice area. I do like Gold Beach. Brookings, Coos Bay, I mean, the entire Oregon coast. Some real spectacular scenery. It's just cold, constantly. Windy and cold. And you haven't been cold until you've had that sideways wind blowing rain through your clothes. I mean, I know the folks up in North Dakota are laughing and giggling right about now, saying, "Buddy, you don't know cold. Come spend a month out here on the Oregon coast. You'll be wanting to get back to the snow." Okay, let's see. Steve Late pulled the trigger on VCarve desktop yesterday, so now the fun begins. Yes, sir. Now it does begin. I know you're over in the UK. Vectric has several, well, I know they have one, maybe 2 user group meetings over in the UK per year. And set up your V&Company account and keep an eye on it. They will announce when they're going to have a user group meeting. If it's not postponed or outright canceled, there is a U.S. user group meeting coming in September down in San Diego, and I will be going just as an attendee to learn. So I hope to see some of you folks down there. If you're planning on going, but just say hello to me. I mean, I'm easy to recognize. Come up and we'll BS a little bit. Sorry about the keep scratching my nose. I got a mustache hair tickling me here. But that's the price of having this thing. The user group meetings are real good resources of information, and you are talking with Vectric instructors right there. So it's a great opportunity to get not only clarification, but to ask any technical questions you have about the software. And I can't wait. I personally can't wait. So just remember, Steve, nothing replaces experience. And the only way to get that experience is to do it. So just get in and practice with the software. And if you mess up, delete it and start over. I mean, I cannot count high enough to tell you how many files I've created and just tossed out. So let's see. Jim Hester, what kind of screws do you use to hold down the pieces to the auxiliary spoil board? I'm using a bunch of exterior grade deck screws, basically because I had a bunch on hand. That doesn't really matter. I'm just, let's see, I think they're number 8. Maybe they're number 8 by 1.25 inches. So, but any kind of screws that'll go through the material and down into that spoil board is good enough. So, let's see, Kevin Christopher. You mentioned painting and waiting on the weather. I have this problem too. Any suggestions on in-home ventilation? No. That's why I don't paint in the house. I prefer to use lacquer when I can. Sometimes I just can't. So I have to use either an enamel or a shellac-based primer and then an acrylic paint over the top of that. The acrylic paint is not a problem. There's not really a whole heck of a lot of fumes there. But lacquer fumes are not only toxic, let's face it, they just downright stink. So I'm kind of at the mercy of the weather until I get my shop built. So I don't have any tips on ventilation. In fact, if anybody else has any tips, I'm all ears. I'm more than willing. So I have used polyurethanes in the past as top coats and then let them cure in the house. That's not a problem so much back here. But as far as, and that's fine for a clear coat, but I'm going for a white satin finish, so my choices are kind of limited. It's either going to be lacquer, a enamel, or an acrylic paint, and I just haven't decided yet. So it's looking more and more like I'm going to have to use white acrylic, which I don't want to do. But what can I say? Also have a Cut2D Pro question, but don't want to be off topic. Go for it, Kevin. This is the time to ask. Let's see. Dale Francis wants to know, if you were to use resin, how do you pour it in as dam and then sand it down? I don't get your question about pouring in as dam. See, I don't have it right here handy. I was going to show one resin pour I did, but I don't know where I put it. I haven't gotten into doing that video yet, but it is coming down the road to doing a V carving and then doing a resin pour on that. And when I did it, I just filled up as close to the surface as I could get and then used a random orbit sander. I don't have a drum sander or anything like that. So I just kind of try to pour it even with the top. The resin I use is Stone Coat countertop resin. So it's only meant to be poured a maximum of 1/8 of an inch thick. This is not a casting resin. And it's a real slow set. You pour it, and then you can start working with it in 24 hours. You can route it in 24 hours. but they suggest you wait 3 days before you start sanding it. And I've done a couple of projects with it. I like it, but this is not a casting resin. So I do have a couple of video ideas planned for it. I just haven't gotten there yet. So let's see. David Krause, do you ever use a V-bit to put a chamfer on a profile before cutout? Yes, and I've shown that in a couple of videos, but right off the top of my head, I can't think of which ones they were. I think I did that on my Home Sweet Home sign, but I'm not sure. I'll have to look. When we're done with the live stream here and I go back and take a look for links and what have you, I will go back and look and see which video I did that on. I've done it on a few, and I'll post a link down in the description of this video. So give me about 10 minutes after we go off the air here, and then I'll find that video. I think it was the Home Sweet Home sign. I did that, and it works well, Dave. All I do is I do a selected depth. I do a profile toolpath, and I figure out the depth. How far do I want that bit to plunge? And then I cut on the vector. And it works really well. So far, all I've used has been the 90-degree V-bit for a chamfer. I've not done it with a 60-degree. I could. I just haven't done it yet. But it works real well. So let's see. Mark John, I purchased VCarve Pro and have purchased tooling from Amana Tools from Tues Today. Have you imported their tooling library into VCarve? If so, could you demonstrate on a video? I have demonstrated in a couple of videos, the tapered ball nose bit video and the adding a form tool video. I've demonstrated that. But be warned, the tool library from Amana Tools is huge. I mean, gigantic. Here's a little tip for you here. Something I did was when a new update comes out, a new upgrade, say from version 9.5 to 10, or what's coming later this year from 10 to 10.5, and you install the new version, the old version stays there. It doesn't go away. Now, I merge all the databases, and I have a video on that. I'll put a link in the description. Boy, I'm getting a list. I merged the databases. Then what I did was I downloaded the Amana tool library, and I installed it in that old version. So I have Aspire 9.5, and then now I'm using Aspire 10. I installed that Amana tool library in version 9.5. Then when I buy a tool, an Amana tool, I go to that library in 9.5 and export a tool file for that single bit. Because if you load the entire tool database into the current version that you're using, it is going to take forever for that tool database to populate when you go to open it up and use a tool. And there are a ton of bits in there. That database file is huge. And I didn't want it to clog up the version that I was using. So I'll just go into Aspire 9.5, go into the tool database, find the tool I want to use, export that tool file, and then go into version 10 and load that tool file for that single specific tool. It's a cheat, but it works. So, excuse me. Let's see. Late again, Dave Matthews. I'll let it go this time. Good afternoon. Let's see. Hi, Mark from Michigan. Good tips. I've used the dowel method you showed today. Sometimes it's hard to get my head around the flipped position. The only thing you have to remember is which direction you're flipping the material, because you can either set it up to where you're flipping end for end or top to bottom. If you just remember that, you're set. And that's why I put those dowels in there in an asymmetrical pattern like that. That way there's only one way I can put it on. It just will not go on any other way. Excuse me. Boy, I didn't bring a glass of water with me. So you just have to remember which direction you set your material to flip and stay consistent with it. Go accordingly. So Dwayne also says, I often use edge guides pinned to the table for alignment. The caveat is the vectors have to be centered or the top and bottom will not match up. Your method assures alignment. Well, thank you, Dwayne. It's not my method. I just use it. That's what I saw in the tutorials, and I tried it on a couple of projects before I made my first video on it, where I made the mason jar lids, and it works. So I'm sticking with it. That dowel method, it's basically foolproof. If you go back and watch the previous video, part 2 of the series, where I created those alignment dowel holes, you'll see why. Because the software automatically puts it into position, then I don't have to think, and I like that. So let's see. Salem's Pap 11 says, is there a way for a rotary to be the A-axis only, not Y or X traverse? I don't fully understand what you're saying. The A-axis will rotate, but depending upon which way you orient it, you're going to need either you're either going to need Y or X, depending upon how you orient your rotary axis. You're going to need one or the other to do any carving on it. So I don't fully understand your question. Let's see. Dave Matthews, are you working on another spinning wheel? I think I see one behind your head. Yes, it's been here for a while. That is, it's kind of currently storage as well as being worked on. This was a little wheel a friend of my wife's gave her. She could not get it to spin properly. And after several years of banging her head against the wall, she just gave it to my wife, making number 23 in the herd. And it turns out it was just a decorative wheel only. It was never meant to spin. And whoever tried to convert it to get it to spin did a pretty good job on it. And it can spin with a few modifications to it, which I'm getting ready to do. So it's a work in progress, but it's not a high priority project. So let's see. Bill Dirick, I hope I'm not butchering your name. The latest update for VCarve Pro doesn't install any ideas. If you're having technical issues with them, with VCarve, I would email Vectric support. Other than that, I have no other ideas. That's what Vectric support is there for, to help you with those kind of technical software issues. So send them an email. It is about 8 in the evening on Sunday there, so they'll get it first thing in the morning when they come into the office. So it shouldn't take long for them to give you an answer, but it won't be today. So let's see. Mario Medina, have you used composite nails to hold down material? No, I haven't. I'd like to give them a try, but the price has got me a little bit nervous about spending that much money on an experiment. You have to use a staple gun for those composite nails, or excuse me, a nail gun made for those nails. And they're expensive. The nails are expensive. So I find that either the tape and CA glue or just using screws to be a great option for me. Again, I'm a home hobbyist. I don't do this for a living. If you're in a production environment, a vacuum table or those composite nails might be for you. But I have heard anecdotally from a few people who do use those composite nails to be careful, because those nails can shatter if you hit a knot that you don't know is in there, you know. So let's see. Bob Helter and you have a great stainless steel tumbler with your logo on it. Do you mean this one? Yes. Yes, I do, Bob. Yes, I do. And thank you for that. So let's see. Bill also asked, Vectric has an adjustable computer table in Aspire. Could this be cut in Pro or saved in Pro format from Aspire? Yes, it could. However, well, you would have to find somebody who has Aspire who would be willing to save it in CRV format for VCarve and send it to you. The problem with that is if there are any tool paths that are Aspire only, like 2-rail sweeps or something like that, that will not, the Aspire software strips all of that out. So you would only get the tool paths that VCarve can actually cut and can actually edit and work with. See, the adjustable computer table I thought was a VCarve compatible project. I'll have to take a look at that. But I really thought that that was a VCarve project. I'll have to get in there and look. How do you do, Aaron? Hope you're enjoying your coffee mug too. Okay, I think that looks to be about all the questions. I don't see any more. Okay, wait a minute here. Salem's Pap 11. That's a no to A-spins to do the carving. Thanks. Yeah, the A-axis rotates the stock in the chuck or between centers or however you mount it. But then you still need either, if your rotary axis is mounted side to side, you still need your X-axis to move back and forth and carve. If you're rotated the long way, you'll still need your Y-axis to move back and forth and carve along its length. So let's see. Albert Drew wants to know, have you done any laser burning using VCarve Pro? No, I have not. I don't have a laser mounted on my CNC. I had a question a couple of days ago about the K40 laser I used to have back here. And as I said in a couple of previous live Q&As, that laser got sent back to the seller. It was so freight damaged that it could not be aligned at all. And when the seller got it back, they immediately refunded my money with no questions asked, because they were appalled at how damaged it was. They said there's no way on earth anybody would get this aligned to cut. So my experience with that K40 was just enough to let me know that it was too small for what I wanted to do, so I haven't bothered to replace it. I have looked at getting a diode laser to put on the CNC, but it's such a low priority right now, I don't think I'm going to invest the time or the money to put one on. So the short answer is no, I've never done any laser burning with VCarve Pro. I would recommend you go check out Dave Gatton's YouTube channel. I'll put a link to it in the description box of this video as soon as I go off the air here. He has a JTech laser on his CNC, and he has done several projects with it. He does some fretboard engraving and various other things with it, and it does a real good job for him. So, okay, David Roby has a suggestion in regard to not being able to download the update 10.022. If you have a VPN app on your computer, try turning the VPN off and try the download again. Okay. Thanks for the tip. I do appreciate that. Neil's Hobby HQ. I have a screw-driven Ooze Nest CNC. What's the best lubricant for the screws? I get a lot of flack about this because personally, I use white lithium grease. I don't use a lot, but I use a little bit of white lithium grease. I know a lot of people use the Teflon or dry lubricant spray, which is mostly silicone. I personally despise silicone. I won't allow it in my shop because if it transfers over to the wood, there are your finishing problems right there. I won't allow it in the shop. So, just no. I would, what does Ooze Nest recommend? Those are the people that I would talk to. If they have a preference, I know some manufacturers like light machine oil, like a mineral oil or a sewing machine oil. Some like a grease, some like the silicone spray. I just don't like silicone spray at all, so I don't have it in the shop. So, sorry I can't be more help than that. But I would talk to the folks at Ooze Nest and see what they say. Let's see. Kevin Christopher for cutting flat 6 to 12 millimeter MDF shapes, like the Eiffel Tower, for example, with a slight chamber. I'm guessing you mean chamfer on a Zembot. Is Cut2D Pro good enough? It may be if you are, but a little caveat here. If you are going to be doing any V carving, Cut2D will not do, it doesn't have V carving tool paths. Cut2D Pro is just that. It is for 2D shapes. So if you're cutting out a lot of parts, gears or things like that, Cut2D is probably all you'll need. It'll drill holes, it'll do tool paths, it'll do pockets, but it does not V-carve. I don't think there is any capacity there to cut 3D models or anything like that. I think it's strictly two-dimensional parts. But if that's all you're going to be doing is flat work, it probably would do you. But if you're going to try to V-carve text or what have you into any of those parts, there is no capacity to do V-carving in Cut2D. So, okay, let's see. All right, Neil's Hobby says they recommend Teflon dry lube. Just wondered what you use. Then, yeah, I would stick with what they recommend. They know the equipment best. I don't know what materials it's made out of, so it's best to follow their recommendation. So, let's see here. A couple of people having to leave, and good afternoon, Ronald. How you doing? Ronald Ledger's in the house. George Sebastian. Let's see. I have an HD4 Shark. I haven't had a chance to try it, I guess. Kind of nervous to make an error. You will make errors. Don't sweat it. I have VCarve software, and I think I'll do simple text for my first project. What do you recommend? Perfect. That's perfect. My first few projects, what I did was I got on my local Craigslist and got into the free section and just started looking for scrap wood that people were wanting to get rid of before it goes to the landfill. And I started off simple. I mean, I cut up fence boards and scrap 2x12s and 2x6s for probably 3-4 months, because A, it was lumber that was destined for the landfill, so it didn't matter if I messed it up. B, it's fairly soft wood, so I wouldn't tear up bits or my machine. And C, if it turned out nice, great. If I made a mistake and just totally horked it up, I didn't feel guilty about throwing it on the burn pile because it was going to the landfill anyway. And free is always a good price. So, in fact, I did that when I got my rotary axis and was first testing a few things out. I got on the free section and looked, and I found a fellow who was getting rid of 2 cedar deck balusters for deck railings. And I went over and grabbed those. Oops, excuse me. I went over and grabbed those and cut them into lengths and played with them on my rotary axis. It kept it out of the landfill. I made a couple of neat little projects that are sitting out on a knick-knack shelf. And I learned how to use my rotary axis. They're not perfect. They're not pretty, but it worked. And I didn't waste $125 in material. One of the first projects I did was just a simple address sign for out in front of the house, because it was a profile and 4 numbers. And there's a lot of instant gratification in that. It was simple, it was quick, and the learning curve is very gentle. And I do have, I have a video on that. I believe it was part 2 of the V carving for the Absolute Beginner series, and there is already a link to that in the description below. So, let's see. George also asks, do you know anyone near Beaverton, Oregon I can talk to in person? No, I don't. I don't know anybody up there in that neck of the woods. There is a Facebook group called, I want to say it's PDX CNC group. Search for it on Facebook. I do know PDX CNC is in there, and they have monthly get-togethers and do a bunch of hands-on stuff together. It's just way up north. I'm down near Medford, down the other end of the state, so I can't help you with anybody in Beaverton. So, let's see. Jim, Mark, will your triple touch plate work with Mach 4? I believe it does. Head over to the Triple Edge Finder website. I put a link in the description in today's video, not this one, but today's video. And yeah, go check it out over there. I believe Mach 4 is set up to accommodate it. So, let's see. C. Davis, is there an easy way to input drill bit info when adding if it does not have a number for VCarve? And where is this info? If it doesn't have a number, I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about. The easiest way to input a drill bit is to find a bit that is similar to the one that you're trying to enter. Copy that bit and then change the parameters, diameter or what have you. So that's the easiest way. Let's see. George Sebastian. Also, I bought some STL files from Design and Make. Are they ready to just input? Do I need to do anything else? Appreciate your answers. You will need to import them. There are videos. Let's see, I'll put a link to my 3D Carving for Absolute Beginners series. No, there is already a link to the 3D Carving for Absolute Beginners series down in the description of this video. Go to that playlist and you'll look for import an STL file. That's what you'll need to do, and it'll go through all of that for you right there. So, Mario Medina, beware of hidden nails on used wood. Words to live by, my friend. I have a small metal detector, a little metal detector wand like they use at airport security, and I go through every piece of reclaimed wood. So that's. Let's see, Aaron Hansen, I got a rotary axis, but have not had the guts to try it yet. Wish there were more videos out there. Just try it. Just try it. Just try it. C. Davis wants to know, is Photo VCarve compatible with Carbide Motion? I do not know. I've never used Carbide Motion. You might want to go to their support forum and ask them about it there. I see Jonathan W., the man, the myth, the legend, is here. I'm telling you what, if you're not subscribed to Jonathan W. and watching him build this Roadster pickup with a Buick Straight 8 from junk parts, you are missing out. The man is phenomenal. Hold that thought for just 1 second, Jonathan. I have something to show you, and this was completely unscripted. It's going to take me a minute to find it. I am going to... You're going to see it here first. This is an exclusive, Jonathan. That's what I have so far. I'm just waiting on you to give me measurements and everything else. So I hope that's right. I got the basic shape. We'll talk further later on. I do love to tease. So there's the preview. And then I got to figure out the fancy parts. So, but I can't wait for it. This is going to be a lot of fun, Jonathan. I'm having a lot of fun already. But we can take it from there. Okay, good grief. I've been on here for 45 minutes already. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. I'm not seeing any more... I'm not seeing any more questions that I could answer off the top of my head. So let's go ahead and okay, Samurai Logistics coming in and says Carbide Motion is not compatible with VCarve. So Photo VCarve is a different standalone program. I really didn't think that it was. So, you know, when you start mixing and matching software publishers, it's kind of, a tenuous thing. I mean, sometimes it'll work, most times it won't. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this out here, and I will see everybody, let's see, next week. Simply because of weather, I'm not going to be doing the finish up on these shelf brackets for her yarn shelf, just because I don't have weather to paint. So instead, I'm going to get into something that folks asked me about a few weeks back, and that is ramps and leads. This will be another absolute beginner video. When you would use a ramp, why you would use a ramp, what leads are, when you would use one, why you would use one, and we can go from there. So I want to say thank you very much. I've had a couple of donations through my the PayPal me link down in the description. Thank you very much. You guys are more than generous, and I really do appreciate it. It's very humbling for me to think that people care enough about anything I've said to do stuff like that. I don't talk about it a lot, but they're there if you'd like to pat me on the back and say thank you. And it's gratefully appreciated, believe me. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for spending part of your Sunday with me. And give me about 10 minutes. I'll get those links put down in the description of this video. And get outside and go do something cool. Make some chips. Don't hang around with me. Have a good week. See you next week, y'all. Bye-bye.